Apple is about to make some massive changes to the iPhone 16 that no one saw coming, but the leaks are coming in hot. Plus, we've got some new info on who is going to replace Tim Cook. It's not who you think. iPhone 17 leaks have begun, and Apple just admitted they made a huge mistake. We've got new iPhone leaks, we've got rumors, there is lots of Apple news you need to know about this week, so let me tell you the good stuff and the bad stuff happening in the wild world of Apple you need to know about right now. All right, so let me kick things off with the most controversial story of the week. We've got some new info on who could be the successor to Apple's top CEO position. Of course, it was Steve Jobs, then Tim Cook, but we know Tim Cook is looking to make his exit sooner than later. Current estimates say probably in the next 3 years he will be out. And the big question, of course, is who's gonna be next? Is Johnny Ive gonna come back and make his triumphant return and make Apple the best it can be? Are we gonna have someone more akin to Tim Cook, like Jeff Williams, sort of the current COO, a very big operations guy? Could we maybe get Craig in, Air Force One, leading the way for Apple's next generation? Actually, it's none of those names. A new star at Apple that's looking to be sort of emerging right now, and someone who has definitely become way more of a familiar face at, I think, almost every single Apple event over the last couple of years, is this guy, John Ternus, the current Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering at Apple. John has been at Apple for a couple of decades now and really sort of led the engineering efforts on a lot of big major products, iPhone, AirPods, Mac, all that stuff. And he's quickly becoming one of the authoritative voices at Apple events. He's the one to usually introduce some big new products and big new features, and this sort of does make sense. I think one of the big criticisms that many have with Tim Cook is he's way more of a numbers guy, an operations guy. He doesn't have the vision or the passion for products like Steve Jobs did or Johnny Ive did, but he's more operational. And I think that John Ternus, though we don't know a whole lot about him, does seem to a little bit more strike the balance between being an authoritative leader, someone who understands the complexities of what it takes to build this stuff, but also someone who seems to have a passion and vision and hopefully a little bit more of a creative spark than Tim Cook did. Not saying that Tim Cook did a bad job, but I think some young blood in there might be a good shakeup, and that's sort of what we're hearing right now is sort of one of the big priorities. Jeff Williams was a contender for years, and we sort of heard he was the most feasible, most traditional successor to Tim Cook, but because he's not much younger than Tim, that might actually eliminate him from the running. Craig Federighi is someone we all love and sort of adore in the Apple community, and he makes a lot of sense, but for one reason or another, he doesn't seem to be in the running for that top spot. Looks like John Ternus, this guy here, might be the next Apple CEO in the next couple of years, at least according to what we think we know right now, sources talking to Bloomberg. All right, moving away from some Apple corporate drama, let's get into the products, folks, and talk about the latest leaks and rumors you need to know about, starting first with the iPhone 16. Our friend John Rettinger was able to go hands-on with dummy models of the iPhone 16 lineup, confirming some of the big features you need to know about. Of course, the action button is going to every single model of the iPhone this year. We've got bigger screens coming to 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max, and the 16 and 16 Plus have this new camera orientation layout. This is really the biggest visual difference you're gonna notice on the iPhone 16 lineup. One of the other big rumors we're actually hearing about right now, though, is that we could be getting some significantly brighter screens on the iPhone 16 Pro series. A new rumor coming out over the last couple of days claims a 20% increase in brightness for SDR content. HDR content, which gets super bright, would remain sort of at its same peak level of brightness, but SDR content could get noticeably brighter, which would be great because most of the stuff we watch on our iPhones is not HDR. And I don't know, let me just, a little aside here, anyone else sort of annoyed at the HDR content now on TikTok and Instagram and like how it overtakes your screen and makes it look funky? I think that having brighter regular content would be nice, and I think having a brighter screen overall, especially as we use our phones outdoors, would be really nice. So that could be coming to the iPhone 16 Pro in the next couple of months. And this is about the time of the year that Apple usually locks in the iPhone 16 design. So the design is basically concrete. Apple's gonna start to mass produce these phones very, very soon. So basically the features we're hearing about now will likely be there and sort of locked in. But I also should say that this is also about the time, I know it sounds a little crazy, but I've got to tell you that we start to hear about the next generation of iPhone, and we do have some pretty exciting rumors on what could be coming in 2025 with the iPhone 17 lineup. that might just be worth waiting for. Now, of course, you've got to take this with a major grain of salt because things will change between now and next year. But what we're hearing right now is that according to leaks, iPhone 17 series is shaping up to be pretty exciting with a couple of big changes. One of the biggest changes is that on the Pro models, most of the Face ID components are moving totally under the display. So the only cutout you'd have on the screen is just for the selfie camera, which could mean that the dynamic island gets significantly smaller. So it would sort of be there and be digital and be able to sort of pop out when you needed it. But when you're just sort of browsing on your phone, you'd get more screen real estate to work with, and all of the Face ID hardware, the sort of cutout that we've got right now, would shrink down way, way smaller and just be less noticeable and in your way. We're also hearing Apple could make some major camera upgrades with the 17 series, giving us a 24 megapixel selfie camera on all phones, a 48 megapixel telephoto lens for the Pro series, and then a couple of big upgrades to the regular iPhones. Finally, in 2025, cross on our fingers, this would be the year that the iPhone 17 and 17 Plus would be getting 120Hz ProMotion and the always-on display functionality. So as we know, Apple usually does Pro features and slowly but surely they bring it down to the regular phones. That should be happening next year. And we're also hearing a bit of a wild rumor that the iPhone 17 Plus might be getting an even larger display and might get renamed potentially to iPhone 17 Slim. That's sort of the name at least floating around right now. Not sure if it's an official name or sort of a code name or what someone thinks it could be called, but we could be getting some bigger changes to the Plus version of the iPhone 17 next year in 2025 and maybe a new name. iPhone 17 Slim, you in, you out? Sounds interesting. The internet is losing its mind and is very divided on this ad. This was sort of the iPad Pro reveal ad that played at the Let Loose event, and people have a lot of opinions on whether it was good or not. Now, you can watch the ad for yourself, and please let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on this because there are two separate opinions. Some people think it's fine, they understand the metaphor, Apple sort of condensing all of these different tools down to one amazingly thin device, while others see this as sort of disrespectful and destructive and just not great. And I do think it's very interesting that Apple has always been very intentional with their ads to be fun, to be lighthearted. They always made you feel good, and they were maybe poking fun, but never overtly negative. And while this ad isn't negative, I definitely couldn't help but feeling myself like it didn't really make me feel good. I'm all for things getting blown up and destroyed, and that's always fine with me, but it was especially like the emoji there getting like concerned face and then popped and then destroyed. It was a little unsettling. And like, I get what Apple was going for there, and I'm not upset or offended, but I will say that it was a bit of a interesting ad choice for Apple on what they decided to do with this. In fact, the pushback from different social media accounts and different critics on blogs and articles and publications was so much that Apple actually did something they rarely ever do, and they sort of issued a comment, a little bit of an apology, saying they missed the mark, and now instead of Apple planning to move forward and sort of airing this as a commercial or paying for this to be sort of a campaign ad you'd see like in a pre-roll on YouTube video, they're not gonna do that. They're just sort of gonna let it live independently on its own and not promote it anymore sort of on their original plan because of the backlash. So you let me know, was this a good ad or a bad ad? Should Apple have apologized? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Finally, coming back a bit closer to some features we will see very, very soon is a really interesting story on Apple closing in on a deal to bring ChatGPT to the iPhone in some really interesting ways. We heard just a couple of days ago, right at the end of last week, that Apple was closing in on a deal with OpenAI to bring some of their sort of cutting edge breakthrough AI technologies to the iPhone. And this sort of tracks with what we had heard, that Apple obviously is putting a huge emphasis on AI. They know they need to make Siri smarter and bring some new AI features to their devices. We obviously have heard that they just sort of can't do it themselves for whatever reason, despite billions and billions of dollars. And although they were talking to other companies like Google and I think even Microsoft was sort of throwing in their other AI companies, it seems like they might be going with OpenAI as sort of the final big partner, which does make sense. Sort of right now, OpenAI is sort of the hot commodity. They seem to be sort of leading the way. And we're not exactly sure how this is going to work, but it seems like the ChatGPT engine, did I say that right? ChatGPT? Will be sort of running the brain power of Siri and you would have just access to a way better virtual assistant, smarter assistant with the whole power of the internet and natural language processing and all that stuff here on the iPhone. And if the deal is done very quickly here, we should hear more about this in just a couple of weeks at WWDC, as iOS 18 is expected to be obviously announced and be a major overhaul to the iPhone. So super excited to hear this. Can't wait to see what AI features Apple finally introduces. And I feel like an OpenAI and Apple partnership do make a lot of sense. Obviously some privacy concerns there, but I'm sure Apple's thinking about that, and I'm really curious to see how this actually turns out, and we should know more in just a couple of weeks at WWDC. As always though, guys, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? Your thoughts on iPhone 17 rumors? Does it seem exciting? Are you gonna wait for the iPhone 17? Your thoughts on John Ternus being the new Apple CEO? Your thoughts on the Apple ad? Let me know your thoughts on the Apple News of the Week down below in the comments. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your likes, comments, subscribes. I appreciate you all. I'm Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle, and I'll see you all in the next one.